In a small, secluded laboratory hidden deep within the sprawling woods, Dr. Victor Steinhardt delved into the forbidden realms of science. Obsessed with the idea of creating the perfect defender, he embarked on a macabre journey that would unleash an unspeakable horror upon the world. Dr. Steinhardt, a disgraced geneticist with a dark past, had long been ostracized from the scientific community. His insatiable desire for power and control led him to explore ethically questionable experiments. In his quest for the ultimate weapon, he unearthed classified research on cloning techniques and the mysterious art of genetic manipulation. Driven by an unholy curiosity, he decided to resurrect history's most malevolent figure, Adolf Hitler. As the flickering fluorescent lights illuminated his clandestine laboratory, Dr. Steinhardt meticulously gathered genetic material from ancient artifacts and historical documents linked to Hitler. He spent countless nights refining the cloning process, haunted by the ghost of his own moral decay. Eventually, he succeeded in creating a perfect genetic replica of the infamous dictator. The clone, eerily similar to the original Hitler, was christened Project Übermensch. Dr. Steinhardt, reveling in his unholy creation, took on the role of a twisted father figure. He raised the cloned Hitler in isolation, indoctrinating him with a distorted sense of duty and righteousness. The clone, devoid of the original's memories but infused with his malevolent essence, grew to be a charismatic and formidable figure. Unbeknownst to the world, Dr. Steinhardt unleashed his creation upon an unsuspecting populace, introducing him as a savior and defender of the people. The clone, now known as Adolf II, garnered a massive following with his eloquent speeches and promises of a utopian society. However, beneath the charismatic facade lurked a darkness that chilled the very souls of those who crossed his path. As Adolf II's influence grew, whispers of his true origin began to circulate. Some claimed he was a resurrected Hitler, while others dismissed it as wild conspiracy theories. Dr. Steinhardt, reveling in the chaos he had sown, continued to manipulate events from the shadows, watching as fear and paranoia consumed the world. But the sinister plot took an unexpected turn when Adolf II, driven by a twisted sense of destiny, started implementing brutal policies reminiscent of the original dictator. The world, once deceived by his charm, now faced a new reign of terror as the cloned Hitler sought to impose his warped vision of a utopian society. Governments and rebel factions alike mobilized against the unholy force that Dr. Steinhardt had unleashed. As the world teetered on the brink of chaos, a small group of brave individuals, armed with the knowledge of the clone's true nature, embarked on a perilous journey to expose the dark secret and put an end to the reign of the resurrected Hitler. The climax unfolded in a climactic confrontation within the very heart of Dr. Steinhardt's laboratory. As the truth about Adolf II's origins came to light, a battle between good and evil erupted. The once charismatic clone, now consumed by his dark legacy, fought fiercely against those seeking to stop him. In a harrowing twist, Dr. Steinhardt, recognizing the monster he had created, turned against his own creation. The laboratory, filled with the eerie glow of failed experiments and the stench of moral decay, became the battleground for the final confrontation. The air was thick with tension as the group fought desperately to prevent history from repeating itself. In the end, the cloned Hitler met his demise at the hands of those who refused to succumb to the shadows of the past. As Adolf II crumbled, the world breathed a collective sigh of relief. Dr. Steinhardt, haunted by the consequences of his actions, vanished into obscurity, leaving behind the ruins of his macabre experiments. The horror of the cloned Hitler and the twisted experiments of Dr. Victor Steinhardt lingered in the collective memory of humanity. The tale served as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk when science is driven by the pursuit of power and the shadows of history are tampered with. As the world slowly recovered from the darkness that had gripped it, whispers of the unholy clone and his malevolent creator echoed through the annals of history, a cautionary tale of the consequences of playing God with the very fabric of existence. Years passed, and the world tried to heal from the scars left by the cloned Hitler and the horrors unleashed by Dr. Steinhardt. However, the remnants of their malevolence lingered like a persistent shadow, casting doubt on the very fabric of society. Rumors circulated that remnants of Dr. Steinhardt's research had fallen into the wrong hands. Secret societies and clandestine organizations sought to harness the forbidden knowledge for their own nefarious purposes. The fear of a new era of darkness loomed, prompting governments to intensify efforts to uncover and eradicate any traces of the sinister experiments. In a quiet corner of the world, a small group of survivors from the original confrontation dedicated their lives to preventing the resurrection of such malevolence. Calling themselves the guardians of ethical science, they vowed to uphold the principles of morality and prevent anyone from following in Dr. Steinhardt's nightmarish footsteps. The Guardians tirelessly hunted down remnants of the cloned Hitler's ideology and Dr. Steinhardt's research, dismantling secret laboratories and thwarting attempts to manipulate the very essence of humanity. They became a beacon of hope, standing as the last line of defense against the encroaching darkness. However, as they delved deeper into the hidden corners of the world, the Guardians discovered that the sinister legacy extended beyond Dr. Steinhardt's laboratory. Other scientists, enticed by the allure of power and control, had continued his work in secret. The Guardians found themselves embroiled in a global game of cat and mouse, facing adversaries who sought to harness the secrets of cloning and genetic manipulation for their own twisted agendas. The leader of the Guardians, a brilliant geneticist named Dr. Elena Foster, became the face of the resistance against this growing threat. She dedicated her life to not only dismantling the remnants of Dr. Steinhardt's work, but also ensuring that the dark chapter of history would never be repeated. As the Guardians uncovered a network of clandestine laboratories and thwarted attempts to create new abominations, they faced increasingly formidable adversaries. The line between right and wrong blurred, and the ethical boundaries of science became more tenuous. Dr. Foster grappled with the weight of her responsibility, torn between the necessity of extreme measures and the moral high ground she sought to uphold. The resurgence of malevolent clones, each more menacing than the last, challenged the Guardians at every turn. The world teetered on the brink of another descent into chaos, and the Guardians questioned whether they were truly agents of salvation or unwitting participants in a cycle of horror. In the midst of this chaos, a revelation shook the foundation of the Guardians. Dr. Foster discovered that Dr. Steinhardt's experiments had left an indelible mark on her own genetic makeup. She carried a trace of the darkness he had unleashed upon the world. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to her quest, forcing her to confront the shadows within herself as she battled external threats. The story unfolded as a relentless struggle between the Guardians and the forces that sought to exploit the forbidden knowledge of cloning and genetic manipulation. The line between savior and monster became increasingly blurred, and the world held its breath, wondering if humanity could emerge from the shadow of its own darkest creations. In the midst of the escalating conflict, Dr. Foster grappled with the haunting reality of her own genetic connection to the darkness she fought against. The revelation of her tainted lineage added a layer of complexity to her mission. Despite the internal turmoil, she recognized the urgency of the situation and the need to prevent the resurgence of malevolent clones. As the Guardians closed in on the remaining laboratories, the adversaries grew more desperate. The stakes were raised, and the conflict reached a crescendo in a final, climactic showdown at an abandoned facility hidden deep within the mountains. Dr. Foster, now armed with the knowledge of her genetic connection to the darkness, faced the leader of the opposing forces, a brilliant but morally bankrupt scientist named Dr. Helene Richter. The two women, connected by a twisted legacy, engaged in a battle of intellect, morality, and raw determination. In the heart of the facility, where shadows clung to the walls like malevolent specters, the two scientists confronted each other. Dr. Richter, fueled by a desire for supremacy, unleashed a horde of genetically enhanced soldiers, twisted creations that bore the hallmarks of Dr. Steinhardt's macabre experiments. The Guardians fought valiantly, determined to put an end to the cycle of horror. Amid the chaos, Dr. Foster faced her own inner demons, struggling to reconcile her connection to the darkness with her role as a defender of humanity. In a moment of revelation, she realized that overcoming the shadows within herself was the key to defeating the external threat. With newfound resolve, Dr. Foster unleashed a radical solution, a countermeasure that targeted the genetic vulnerabilities shared by the malevolent clones. The tide of the battle shifted as the twisted creations succumbed to the very essence of their existence. Dr. Richter, witnessing the unraveling of her dark ambitions, faltered in disbelief. The facility crumbled around them as the Guardians emerged victorious. Dr. Foster, burdened by the weight of her heritage, faced a choice: succumb to the shadows or rise above them. In a symbolic act, she destroyed the remaining remnants of Dr. Steinhardt's research, ensuring that the forbidden knowledge would never again threaten humanity. As the dust settled and the remnants of the facility dissipated into the mountain air, the world began to heal once more. The Guardians disbanded, their mission fulfilled, but Dr. Foster continued her work in ethical genetics, determined to use her knowledge for the betterment of humanity. The tale of Dr. Elena Foster and the Guardians of Ethical Science became a cautionary legend, a story told in hushed whispers to future generations. The shadows of the past, once thought to be eradicated, lingered as a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge must be guided by ethical principles. In the end, humanity stood at a crossroads, grappling with the lessons learned from the horrors unleashed by cloning and genetic manipulation. The story served as a somber reminder that the choices made in the pursuit of progress could either pave the way for salvation or plunge the world into the abyss of its own creations. The echoes of the dark past reverberated through time, challenging humanity to forge a path toward a future free from the shadows that threatened to consume it.
Like, subscribe, and click on notifications that will allow you to stay up to date with the news and not miss videos from the channel, where there will be many more horror stories.